Hello and welcome to a Yoshimaru Ever Faithful Commander Budget deck. And today, of course, we are featuring Yoshimaru Ever Faithful, a simple card, and I'll read out how the text goes. So it's not just one commander, but there will be two commanders in this deck today. So, Yoshimaru Ever Faithful is a 1-costing white mana commander who starts off as a 1-1, but whenever a legendary permanent comes into play on the battlefield, it gains a 1-1 counter. And coming in as our backup, as a partner commander, is Rokrath, son of Rolgar. He is a simple legendary who is a 0-1 costing, 0 costing commander, 0-1 in stats, but has first strike, menace, and trample. The main focus of this is to get an early legendary creature for Yoshimaru to get a bonus counter. Plus, we can buff this commander up, and he's got such good abilities of first strike, menace, and trample. Not incredible, I know, but the main part is we are white and we are also a red deck. Now let's go over some more legendary creatures. Of course, that is how Yoshimaru is built. So, Abadil Adrian Gorian's Ward and Shram Senior Edificer. The first allow whenever it enters the battlefield, you may exile any number of non-land permanents you control until this card leaves the battlefield. Create a 1-1 white sword for each non-land you do exile. And for SRAM, whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle, we don't have vehicles, but lots of auras and equipments, we draw a card. Lots of good value in him. Baird Argravian Recruiter and Keyleth Sunmane Familiar. So the first allowing is, at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with more power than its base power, so like Yoshimaru for example, you create a 1-1 white soldier. If you have this very early on, Yoshimaru gets a lot of value because automatically it will gain when this card comes out more than its base power, and you get tokens for free. For the next card, Keyleth, whenever the commander attacks, so even if it's the 0-1, you can give it a 1-1 counter. Still counts because you're still technically attacking, so you get a 1-1 counter. That or Yoshimaru. Great value, like I said. Plus, it helps with Baird's ability to give more tokens. Cole the Forge Master and Anvenza Kintry Spirit. Cole the Forge Master allows us whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it was equipped or enchanted anyway, so our legendaries, of course, they will return to our hand instead. So this is a nice way to save anything that gets board wiped in a way against helpers. Also, creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped to get +1/+1. And for the second card, it allows us to bolster whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield. Captain Lannery Storm and Jieru and Hazaret. For the first, it allows us to have haste. Also, whenever Captain Lannery Storm attacks, create a treasure token. Whenever you use a treasure token, give this card +1/+0 until end of turn. Love this card. And for the second card, this card has Vigilance and Haste if you have one or fewer cards in your hand. Also, when you attack, you may look at the top 6 cards of your library, exile one of them that has to be a legendary creature, which you'll have, and you play that card without paying its mana cost. 8.5 Tails and Karizev Skyship Raider. For the first, with a cost of 1/+1 extra, target opponent you control gains protection from white until end of turn. Alternatively, we can pay the other cost, which is target spell or permanent becomes white until end of turn. For Karizev, it has first strike and a menace. When it enters and attacks, you create a Ragavan token that is tapped and attacking, and exile that at the end of combat. Simple, but a really good card. Kimber Karin Drawing and Odric Lunark Marshal. For the first, whenever it enters the battlefield, or another cat enters the battlefield, which you can do with this card, we attach an equipment to that creature, or this card of course. Equipped creatures you control get +1/+1, and it costs us 5 to create a 2/2 white cat creature token. Not great, but it does do some use for us. And for Odric, at the beginning of combat, creatures I control, or you control, gain first strike until end of turn, and just keeps carrying on for all the other abilities mentioned on the card. Rosnakat, Hair of Rogar, and Squee the Immortal. So, for the first card, it has Battle Cry. Whenever this card attacks, other attacking creatures get +1/+0 until end of turn. And for the other part, it has Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets this card, create a 0-1 red kobold creature token. Great card, little bit of ramp to it, make a more attacking creature, which you can buff up somehow if you wanted to. But also, same as the first card, cheap and easy to cast. For Squee, this card can be cast from anywhere, from exile and from the graveyard. Like it said, it's immortal. Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle, and Tuk Tuk the Explorer. For the first, it has flying, but also whenever you cast a historic spell, return a target creature card with mana value of less than 3 or equal to from the graveyard to the battlefield. And for Tuk Tuk, it has haste, but when it dies, create another legendary creature called Tuk Tuk the Return, which is a 5/5 golem. Both count towards Yoshimaru. Zergo Bellstriker and Tayik Legion's Edge. For the first, this card can't block creatures of greater 2 or more power. It also has dash, ring it early if you want to. Also, the next card has haste, mental, and for a cost can give it first strike. Ardern Interpret Archaeologist and Danithia Capuchin Paragon. For the first, at the beginning of your combat, on your turn, you may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to a target permanent or player. Basically just move around your stuff. And for the second, there's First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink, and auras and equipment cost 1 less to cast. Machias the Lunarch and Kedis Emberclaw Familiar. For the first, it enters the battlefield X one counters where X amount you play. So normal cost is 1, but if you stay put 6, it'll get 6 plus for 1 counters on it. Also, you can tap it for add another 1 counter on it, or you can tap to remove 1 off of this creature and then move into every other creature on the battlefield of your own. For the second, whenever a commander deals damage to someone, that damage is then dealt to another opponent afterwards. Talia, Guardian of Threbon, and Gorogoro, Disciple of Rusei. So for the first, it has First Strike, and non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Simple. For the next, it has one ability to really give you. The second one, not so much, but the first, give other creatures haste. Incredible. Lizard's Blades and Yoshimaru, Hound of Conda. So, for the first is Double Strike on its own as an artifact creature, but we're attaching it to give Double Strike to whoever it's attached to. The other is just a simple 2/2 legendary creature. Norin the Wary and Kadric Soulkindler. For the first, whenever a player plays a spell or attacks, it is removed from the game exile, but then it comes back to you under control at the end of the turn, so it's a way to save it basically. Now, for Kadric, the legend rule does not apply anymore. Then, whenever a non-legendary creature enters the battlefield, you may copy that creature, but because the legendary rule doesn't apply anymore, I believe, if I'm probably wrong, but you can then copy that as a token. Lazeo Vlakiv's Champion. So, if you put 1 more counter on a creature or planeswalker you control, or on yourself, then put that many +1 counters on those kind of counters on that permanent or a player instead. So basically, you just put extra counter things. Now for Sorceries. Faithless Looting, draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards, and has Flashback, and Urza's Rudest Blast, which also legendary counts towards Yoshimaru. And for our last sorcery, open the armory. Search your library for an aura enchantment card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. And now for our instance, Swords to Plowshares and Wear and Tear, both removal spells, really nice to see. And Chaos Warp. Target permanent is shuffled into the library, then they reveal the top card of their library. If it's a permanent, it goes onto the battlefield. And now it's time for our artifacts. First is Hero's Blade and Mindstone. Mindstone is a mana rock and sack for a card. Hero's Blade gives 3/2, and if a legendary creature enters the battlefield, you may attach this card to it. Sword of the Chosen and the Eater of Virtue. Sword of the Chosen gives target legendary creature +2/+2 at the end of the turn. For the Eater of Virtue, whenever it's attached to a creature, it gets +2/+0, but also, when the creature dies, exile it. Plus, if one of those creatures that exiled has flying, it gets flying, and then so on for additional other abilities I can get. Heroes Podium and Blackblade Reforged. For the first, each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1 for each legendary creature you control, and you can look at the top X card of your library. You may reveal a legendary creature from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library. For the Blackblade Reforged, it gets +1/+1 for each legendary control, and it's cheaper for legendaries to use. Boros Signet and Tenz's Goddo's Maul. First gives us a mana, and the second gives us value for being red, for having legendary creatures. it's a really good value for having overall. Eye of Vecna and Relic of Legends. Eye of Vecna allows us to use our own life but also to draw cards on our upkeep, and for the Relic of Legends it allows us to tap for extra mana. And of course, Arcane Signet and Soul Ring. And our final artifact, which is Swiftfoot Boots, giving us haste and hexproof. And now for enchantments. Far Traveller and Flaming Fist. Far Traveller allows us to bounce back one creature, and Flaming Fist gives us double strike. On Sarah's Wings and Guild Artisan, the first allowing us to make our dog fly, and the other one gives us treasure tokens. Commander's Insignia and Tavern Brawler. The first gives us +1/+1 for each time we cast our commander, and the other is give it plus power equals the amount of mana cost from the top of our library, which we exile. Next is Popular Entertainer and Noble Heritage. Popular Entertainer goes target creatures, and the other one gives us ability to politics the game by giving counters in response to not letting them attack you. Together Forever and Day of Destiny both just give us more counters, but also Day of Destiny targets our legendary creatures more. And now, moving on to our lands. We're going to be having 17 mountains and 17 plains. Boros Garrison and Command Tower. Kerr Keep and Rogue's Passage. And God Eye's Gates of Rakai and Shivian Gorge. And with that is the end of the video. This has been a whole deck, and it's not been actually a bad deck to make. It's been quite an interesting one, a lot of legendary creatures to use. It's not expensive. It's, at the time of making this, it was about £50, just under. I'd say about $55, I think it is currency converted. But a really nice deck to use. It's really strong, builds up really quickly. So yeah, like I said, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the videos, do as usual. Like, sub. I'll keep making them always, because I enjoy doing this. Any suggestions, like I said, put them below. I'll get back to them. Any comments you want about the deck, I'll answer. Leave the deck list below as well. Thank you for watching. See you all in the next one.